of the COVID effect, international arrivals could fall by anything between 58 to 78%. Now that is colossal. That's really, really huge. Because apart from, tourism has three aspects to it. The first, of course, is aviation. The second is hospitality. And the third is the related ancillary services, which include a whole range of activities. It's also a well-known fact that tourism accounts for almost 10% of global GDP. It accounts for 1 in 10 people being employed. And in the last 5 years, 1 out of every 4 new jobs that have been created are because of tourism. So there's a huge multiplier effect that tourism has upon the entire economy. And consequently, the shutting down of tourism has just the opposite effect. It depresses the economy in a huge way. Now, more than 96% of all global destinations have either partially or completely imposed restrictions upon travel. Where does that leave the industry? There's a lot of capital that's invested in it, and there's a lot of human capital that's invested in it. And in India, where we, have been trying to get the inbound tourism numbers up, and we crossed the 10 million figure a couple of years ago, we are now faced with the prospect of almost zero tourism. Because business travel might start when things are opened out a little. Because some countries are selectively and cautiously opening borders. They're talking about tourism corridors, tourism bubbles. But that's a very small portion of what the world needs where tourism is concerned. So we're also looking at domestic tourism perhaps coming to the rescue of the industry. But what about smaller nations? What about island nations? What about nations that do not have enough numbers to justify the belief that domestic tourism will pull us out of this hole that we're in? So, as the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said a few days ago in an interview, this is a global crisis. It's not local, it's a global crisis, and it will require a coordinated global effort. The question is, politics also comes into it. So, all of us in the tourism industry have to make a concerted effort to A, rise above the politics, B, while governments are torn between trying to save lives and trying to save economies, somewhere a balance will have to be drawn because a vaccine is a long, long way off. And you cannot continue lockdown in perpetuity. Therefore, a via media will have to be found. We will have to find safe ways and safe destinations for people to travel. Because if we don't, and this situation continues for another 6 months, global economy is going to be devastated. So it is incumbent upon not only governments, but also the industry to collaborate, to seek ways of finding solutions and to find ways of implementing them. Because, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So the plan is critical. And that's what such discussions hopefully will provide some solutions going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ajay Prakash, by giving us the details how the international tourism is must now. Otherwise, within 6 months, if we will not, it is not going to affect only the tourism, but the entire global economy. And that is a very, very, it's a matter of concern for everyone. And the suggestion which you have given is very good, that not only the government, but the industry should also join hands and come out with some solution so that this international tourism should not die. Now I will move to our second guest. He's Professor Dr. Kiran Yadav. Welcome, Professor Dr. Kiran Yadav on the show.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Yadav. Professor Dr. Kiran Yadav holds a doctorate in management and also MMS marketing. He is presently chairman and managing director of Success Triangles, a company dedicated to management, education, and corporate training in the fields of aviation, banking, emergency care, and travel and tourism. He is having more than 35 years of professional experience, as well as 25 years of teaching experience in various capacities. He has also served as an independent director on the board of many international and Indian organizations. Currently, he is a professor of marketing with GNIMS, Mumbai. His unconventional teaching style makes him a very popular mentor and sought after educator. Welcome, Professor Yadav, on this show. As you have heard our earlier guest, Mr. Ajay Prakash, where he has mentioned that the condition is not that rosy. We have to take action as early as possible. Otherwise, the entire world economy will have a bad effect on this particular international tourism. So now my question to you is that according to you, this COVID-19 impact on international tourism is how much is the impact, and what is your view about this? Professor Dr. Kiran Yadav, please.
Hi, good morning to all the viewers, and thank you, Mr. Goel, for inviting us on this show to share whatever we understand a little bit about the aviation industry and tourism. To start with, let me just roll back and go to where Mr. Ajay Prakash left. We all understand that global GDP, 10% of it comes from the travel and tourism industry. We understand that 1 in every 10 jobs is directly or indirectly linked to the tourism industry. This we are talking worldwide, okay? And also in terms of new job creations, in the last few years, 1 out of every 4 jobs has been created in the tourism industry. Now, this sheer numbers and the size itself defines the magnitude of impact that the tourism industry is facing because of the lockdown across the globe. Let me take a small step back because I am going to focus a little bit more on the area that I've worked in, and that's aviation, civil aviation. If you take this 10% GDP and now you start looking at aviation, aviation is about 1% of the global GDP, 1/10 of the contribution, okay, of travel and tourism industry comes from the airline industry. Let's take a look at the airline industry and see what exactly is the impact of COVID-19 on it. But before we go to COVID-19, let us take a look at the airline industry itself. If you look at the airline industry and if you look at the various global reports that are floating around, today we find that almost globally, all the flying activity internationally has come to a standstill, save and except those flights which are being operated as rescue operations to relocate people to their home countries and otherwise, and these are trickling numbers, okay? When we talk about 1.3 billion tourists globally, out of which if you talk about a few thousand people being relocated, I think it's absolutely insignificant. But let's look at the fact that what has currently happened to the global industry. Most of the airlines have grounded their flights, okay? As per a report by a company called Kappa, okay, which is, again, these are all reports because I simply am looking at what people have to say across the globe. They say that almost all the airlines are on the verge of bankruptcy, okay? 90,000 senior pilots across the globe, okay, have been given the golden handshake, laid off. Okay. Believe me, one of the biggest challenges of an airline is to find good quality pilots. Airlines have closed shop because they did not have the requisite number of pilots, or because a whole group of pilots migrated from one airline to another, and that airline couldn't, fly anymore. In today's situation, it's completely opposite. You can get the best pilots in the world, okay, who have more than 10,000 flying hours in their belt, because most of them are unemployed, okay? And these are one of the most elite, employed, well-paid, remunerated folks in the world. Let's come to the point about the aircrafts. All the orders of the big major companies are absolutely at a standstill. Okay, if at all, if anything is happening, it's working on the aspect of trying to keep the grounded aircrafts airworthy, making sure that as and when things open up, the airlines will be able to fly. Of course, if the airlines are not flying and the pilots are grounded, so is going to be the status of all the other staff, whether it's the ground handling staff, whether it's the airport check-in staff, whether it is the marketing and field offices. So you can imagine that as far as aviation is concerned, it's absolutely come to a standstill. Okay. Now, aviation is the nerve center of travel and tourism industry. It connects people in the fastest, safest, and actually the most cost-effective way. And it is a proven fact. It's accepted everywhere in the world. But the airline industry has never had it easy throughout its history. If you look at the history of aviation, as a whole, the airline industry, all airlines put together globally, have never shown profit combined. It's always been negative. In fact, in the late 2000, the deficit was as much as $75 billion collectively among the 270 odd IATA member airlines. Today, again, it's going back to that same trend. From 2001 to 2009, there was a relatively good picture emerging where airlines were, showing some amount of profitability. In fact, in 2019, the reported profitability of airlines was $28 billion, okay, which was highest or second highest during that decade. So that recovery mechanism seemed. Now, why do airlines not make money? Here's a golden question, okay? Sir Richard Branson has a very, smart quote. He says that if you want to be a millionaire, okay, all you need to do is start with $1 billion and launch a new airline. And now this fact, and many tycoons have proven his theory, including some from the homegrown market in India. So airline industry has never had it easy because of the fact that today the airline industry is one of the most modern industries in the world, in the sense, in terms of safety. There are so many redundancies built into the safety that if you compare the records of air safety versus any other mode of transport, it's a very trickling small percentage. Things are changing with the number of aircrafts going up, but still it's very, very insignificant. Okay. Now, an airline industry, every time there is a war, there is a 9/11, there's an ISIS, there's a SARS, okay, the brunt of it has to be faced by the airline industry, okay, because the connectivity is that gets hurt first. And looking at the overall picture, COVID-19 has delivered what I would say is the most ultimate blow so far, okay. In terms of recovery, which is absolutely essential and important because it's 10% of the economy globally, there are several measures that have been rolled out. Okay, there is, as Ajay mentioned, there is this look at the internal domestic traffic before you look at the international traffic. Is a phenomena that's been popularly looked at by various governments. There's also this within Europe. There's this concept called bubble or twinning. That means two countries which have a relatively better record of managing COVID-19 have decided to open their gates and allow each other to let in tourists from their respective countries. There is also a huge mechanism in place to saying how do you make the aircraft cabin safe. Okay, and let me tell you, if you look at any industry today, aviation industry is one of the first to adopt anything that is modern in technology in the world, be it artificial intelligence, be it augmented reality. Already companies have started looking at which are the surfaces and touch factors on an aircraft that can be avoided. One of the things now, if you see, the domestic flights have started in India from 25th of May, okay? And where we used to have lakhs of passengers traveling every day, now we have a few thousand, okay? Because of the fact of, the various procedures that have been put in place and things like that. But they don't allow hand baggage. The reason for that is hand baggage means touching the aircraft surfaces all over and leaving trace marks, if any, of positive COVID situations. Already, manufacturers have come out with touchless baggage beans opening, okay, where you don't even need to. In-flight entertainment, it's all getting absolutely touchless. At the airports, you've seen pictures of robots moving around and distributing forms and things like that at the Bengaluru airport. But there are companies that have been working aggressively to create kiosks, okay, where a person spends 40 seconds in the kiosk and he's sprayed with, what we call as the micro antiviral effects using nanotechnology, whereby his entire body and clothes and everything gets immunized while he's on the aircraft. Coming back to where I left.
Professor Dr. Yadav, you have mentioned about the aircraft, about that we are making the touchless and whatnot. But if we are talking of India, we are not keeping a distance among the passengers inside the aircraft. If you see, all the 3 seats on both the sides are occupied by the passenger. In my opinion, if one has to allow, then only one passenger should sit one side of the aisle and the other passenger should sit on the other side of the aisle, that too window seats only. Then only, because now the new norms have come, which clearly says that at least 2 meters or the 6 feet distance is required. So even if you will leave the center seat vacant, still that will not serve the purpose. What do you say about that?
See, the fact that you say that these measures will make the airline industry completely unviable. What happens is that even on a normal basis, okay, the airline operate on a 1.5% margin yield ultimately. So there's very little room to be able to actually do this restructuring. On the other hand, you can't enhance fares by 100% or 200%, and then it will get back to where only the elitists pay and travel. Okay, but that's not going to work out, because today travel is going to bounce back. Okay, the fact of life is that you got to bring in procedures and mechanisms whereby even sitting next to each other, you are so well immunized or sanitized that you do not land up, infecting others if you are infected. Okay.
No, but But Professor, again, I am coming to that. That is fine. But right now, as we all know that no such type of thing has been invented or something has come there. If we are sitting just aside, and we will not be going to have affected. So until unless that either that should come, or as far as you say about the thin margin. So the question is again health or wealth, which is the priority. Like the government, when they have locked down the entire country within a notice of 3.5 hours, it was like this, that because the priority was health. Now we are compromising either with the health, or we have developed some such systems already that now there is no problem to sit with each other, touch with each other. Because if we are sitting with each other, touching with, definitely you cannot sit in an aircraft without touching with each other. You are also using the toilets, washrooms. How it's not that easy. But my point is, you are right that otherwise the airline will not function. But anyways, we will discuss this point too again in the next round.
Sure.
Now I will come to Mr. Ajay Prakash. Mr. Ajay Prakash, you just yours. Yes, Mr. Ajay Prakash, you have mentioned about the bubble tourism. Now, many countries have proposed creating tourism bubbles, such as between Australia and New Zealand. Now, what is your view that these bubbles and about these bubbles, and can India partner with any country? Because if like one side we are talking about the domestic tourism, but the domestic tourism will not give that much revenue if we require, because if you see in India, the maximum revenue is coming by the international tourism, whether it's Agra or Goa or many other cities. But if we will not have this, then what is the other solution? So my question is about this bubble thing. What is bubble, which you can just explain, and whether in India we can have the bubble with some countries, and then we can have we can start that international tourism in that way. Mr. Ajay Prakash.
There are two things to consider when we talk about this. The first is that the trajectory of the infection has been different in the East and the West. There is a difference. Unfortunately, we looked at the West first. When the cases started soaring in Italy and Spain, there was a sort of panic knee-jerk reaction here. But the fact of the matter is that the infection has taken different paths in the East as compared to the West. When we talk about the concept of safe corridors or bubble tourism, Germany and Austria decided that their comparative rates of infection, etc., were similar and were not alarming. And therefore, they decided to open their borders to each other. A lot of countries in Europe within the Schengen agreement, which comprises 26 countries, have also decided that they will slowly open their borders to every country currently except Italy, which I think will take its time, but it will happen. So you have a large contiguous block of land mass between which, if the infection rates and the mortality rates and the recovery rates are more or less similar, then it becomes easier for them to open their borders for tourism within that region. Now, for example, I mean, if I was to go, I have a place at a village about 3.5 hours, 3 hours out of Mumbai. But if I was to go there from Mumbai, the local villagers would look at me with suspicion, because Mumbai has is the highest incidence in the country. So if you have a situation where the conditions are similar, then perhaps it makes sense to open up and let people move between these areas. But along with this, there is another very, very important thing which we all need to consider, which is what this COVID-19 virus has taught us. That the world we live in is extremely fragile. that for years we have swept a lot of things under the carpet, thinking, our resources are infinite. The fact is they are not. We cannot go on abusing the planet the way we have done so far, simply because there is no planet B. You cannot go and colonize Mars. You cannot go and build a colony on the moon. The Earth is all you have. And considering that tourism is about movement, which has its own carbon footprint, we need to now look at how we can use tourism to transform the way tourism is conducted. That's becoming increasingly important going forward, because climate change is a reality. People can say, oh, it's a mix, it's a myth, it's a hoax. It's not. You're seeing the effects of it every day. And the COVID-19 virus is actually a manifestation of nature's wrath when nature is striking back at you for having abused. So when we start tourism, because as Kiran also rightly pointed out, tourism will bounce back. It is in the innate nature of the human being to wish to travel, to discover new things, to meet new people, to have new experiences. You cannot keep this bottled up forever. But the question is, do we go back to the old normal? You had a situation where the residents of Venice were complaining about the number of tourists they were getting. I mean, they were getting 100 times more than their actual resident population. And people dragging their wheeled suitcases on the cobbled streets of Venice kept the residents up all night. So the bogey or the fear of over-tourism was raised. Now from over-tourism, we've gone to zero tourism. So, there's a long path to be traversed here. But do we go back the same way, chasing numbers? Or do we use this opportunity to consider how we can actually move towards the higher paradigm of tourism, which is to connect people meaningfully, meaningful for themselves, meaningful for the planet. Okay. Coming to our region, when we talked about bubble tourism, you see, between India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, you can definitely have a zone which is safe for people to travel. Okay. This will require A, political leadership, and B, it will require industry collaboration. But within this region, definitely, we can all look at getting tourism moving instead of each country having to depend only upon domestic tourism. So to me, that's very, very possible. And one hopes that, that is because the Prime Minister talked about a look east policy. We have a contiguous landmass. Let's reach out to our neighbors and see how we can facilitate the movement of our people across our own borders.
Okay. So according to you, we can have a bubble tourism with our neighbors. Depends on the political will as well as the collaboration from the industries. Okay. Now, my question to you, Professor Dr. Yadav. Many countries rely primarily on backpackers or low-cost tourism in Asia. Given the increase in flight prices because of the COVID and need for additional protocols like testing, will this segment of tourism disappear?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Just before I go to this question of yours, you had asked me about the impact of travel in India, and I want an opportunity to be able to address that. See, we started our flights from 25th of May, but if you see some of the pictures that have come in terms of how the passengers are conducting themselves, I think we need to understand that we can't go back to what is the old normal, as Ajay says. Okay, we have to get into a more disciplined. We have to get into a more see. Even if, for example, you were saying that seats should be kept vacant, between at least 6 feet should be. But you look at the way the passengers are rushing to disembark from an aircraft or to get onto their aircraft, wearing all the gear that has been provided to them by the airline. And it's amazing that will keeping 3, 5, 6 seats vacant really help? So I think it's an opportunity for us to actually look at ourselves, look at our old habits, and look at how we conduct ourselves, and see whether there is something that we need to do internally to be able to protect ourselves and our fellow beings who are travelers. So one very strong message I would like to pass on, since we are on a public platform, is that if you are traveling, okay, you're already taking the risk of exposing yourself, and there is definitely some urgent need for you to travel at this point of time. For heaven's sake, follow the 10 guidelines which the government, the airlines have put in place. Okay, don't simply feel that you are invulnerable. You may be, but not necessarily the 10 people around you. So I think that's a major change in the mindset that has to come around in the Indian traveler. Now coming back to backpackers and what's going to happen in the market, going forward. Today, forget about the backpackers. Even seasoned travelers who have been traveling regularly are going to find it difficult to travel once again. Okay, until such time as we find either a vaccine or we find the immunity processes which all the stakeholders are trying to find in terms of how you can sanitize each other. More importantly is that today travel, earlier we did everything to get a visa. Okay, and it was a nightmare to get visas to some of the Western countries, in terms of the procedures to be followed, and everybody did that very diligently. They prepared, they had the entire documentation. Today, your medical health, your ability from where you're coming, where you're going, your ability to be able to travel. There's a new term that's going to come into this. Are you a passenger suitable for travel? Okay, and that suitability itself is going to be expensive to establish. Okay, leave aside the cost of the tickets and the other formalities. So this is definitely going to impact the passengers down the line. But look at the other side of India today. Okay, when we talk of domestic tourism, it's not just the airlines. It's the railways, it's the road transport, and what we've been seeing in the last 15 days, it's the two-legged transport that people have been ultimately, resolving to, because they have no other choice. You've seen families trying to travel 800 kilometers by road because they feel the necessity to reunite with their family. So this is also a part of travel and tourism, if I may, though it may, seem as a not necessarily a pleasure, but a necessity. I think travel is going to definitely change in terms of consciousness, mindset, and abilities of people. Okay. There is going to be a huge demand on your ability to be able to travel safely for yourself and for others.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yadav. What you mentioned about that it all depends on the ability and your mindset. We have our third panel guest today, but I think there is some problem about the net. I'm sure that if she will, I think she's trying.
I think her microphone has been muted.
Once, she has just Miss Nalini ji, please unmute yourself. Yeah, now we can hear you. Can you just unmute? Can you just start your video? Please start your video also. Please start your video. Please start your video.
Yeah, she's on.
No, I've done that.
But video is not. Now, yes, you are there now. Now, before we will lose you. I think I should start with you only. Our next panelist, our guest is Miss Nalini Gupta. She is the managing director of Lotus Destinations. She has varied exposure in the travel industry.
Yes.
After spending her initial 20 years with Air India, she headed Abacus CRS Systems, which is world #1 travel technology platform in India. She was regional head Southeast Asia, South African Airways. She was the president of Thomas Cook Travel Businesses. She was the director of Travel Corporation of India. Her company became GSA for the European cruise leader Costa Cruise in 2012. She truly believes that cruising has great potential in India and is very optimistic that it will eventually become the new way of holidaying for Indians. Now, Ms. Nalini, because you have joined late, but our question to you is, are you there? Can you hear us? Ms. Nalini Gupta, can you hear us? No, I think we have lost her again. That's a problem in Mumbai right now.
I think if she is
Yes, very much.
Okay, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Ms. Gupta?
I can hear you.
No. Yes. So now my question to you is, no,
Yes.
I think your net is weak, so it's not possible for us to talk till that thing. So no, it's not coming. Anyway.
Hello.
yes,
Yeah, we can hear
yes.
you, but we can't see you. But we can't see you.
Yes.
So, yes. No, I think you just we will connect to you again once your no, we will connect you again once we will have your this thing, because we are not getting now.
Okay.
My question to you, Mr. Ajay Prakash, is about what kind of plan can destination countries like India prepare to accept international tourists while safeguarding public health and safety?
Right. The first thing, of course, is to get in place a standard operating procedure to handle incoming travelers, which means that there has to be absolute clarity on the steps to be followed at every airport. It has to be standardized, and this needs to be communicated effectively across the world, because you cannot have a situation where people are uncertain about what will happen to them when they land. Will they be put into institutional quarantine? Will they be put into home quarantine? Will they, will they just be able to walk out and go anywhere? Are there restrictions? Just do a quick check, see if Nalini can hear us. Maybe we can get her back.
Yeah, can you hear us, Ms. Nalini now?
Yes, yes, I can.
Yes.
Okay.
No, okay. Just my question to you is, because you are in the industry for so many years, and now you are looking after the cruise thing, and the cruise, as everybody knows, that it has totally stopped because of the lockdown and the coronavirus. So what is your take about the COVID-19 impact on international tourism, especially in view of the cruise tourism? Ms. Nalini Gupta, please.
I'm trying to get the video back. In the meantime, Sanjay, Ajay, please go ahead.
No, you please go ahead like this only, no problem. You please go ahead like this. You give your answer like this only. Oh, you have lost. Again, yeah, I think, yes, Mr. Ajay Prakash, you are saying.
Technology sometimes makes the impossible possible.
Yes,
sometimes
yes.
makes the possible totally impossible. So, yeah,
yes,
we've got to learn to live with it. Uday,
yes. Yeah,
So coming back to what I was saying, one is that we need a standardization of procedures across all airports that will accept international travelers. Number two, We need to communicate this effectively through the Government of India channels, through the embassies overseas, through the Government of India tourist offices overseas, and through networks of tour operators also, so that everybody is crystal clear on what to expect when they land into India. Mm-hmm. The second thing we need to look at is to look at destinations that have not been so popular, that do not attract such large crowds. So, everybody wants to go and see the Taj Mahal, for example, but there's the Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, there's the Deeg complex next door. So can we look at dispersing the tourism arrivals so that there isn't a concentration in any one place? Because we will need to maintain this, we will have to live with this, as we all realize. There is no magic bullet. It's not going to go away on the 15th of June or the 30th of June. We're all waiting and seeing how this will develop. So the rules that we have established for ourselves, which is, washing your hands, keeping a physical distance, wearing masks, all this will have to continue. But we need to create the space for people to be able to do this. 2 days ago, yesterday, as a matter of fact, there was a picture that somebody sent me of Juhu Beach in Mumbai. People have been under lockdown for almost 2.5 months, and yesterday the beach was open for the public. There were thousands of people crowding that place. No masks, no nothing. Now, if that is the kind of reaction or sensibility, then it's going to be becoming very, very difficult to have any kind of tourism, because you have overcrowding, it will lead to a surge in infection, which will lead to another lockdown. This cycle cannot go on. The cycle has to be broken.
Okay.
And therefore, it's important that A, we have clear standard operating protocols, B, that they are communicated effectively, C, that we find alternative destinations for dispersal, and 4, that we keep the communication going about what are the do's and don'ts.
Okay. Mr. Ajay Prakash, we will try to connect Ms. Nalini Gupta once again, if we will try. Otherwise, we have to keep a separate program for her. Yes, yes, please, Ms. Gupta, tell us about the COVID-19 impact on international tourism.
Firstly, sorry for this disconnect for so long. It just shows that in any industry, the human interaction, you can't depend on technology completely. You still need human interaction and human interface. So I'm glad to finally be connected with all of you. Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, in terms of international tourism, as everybody has seen, tourism was the first impacted. Even when COVID broke down. And while the news about COVID started from China around January, February, it got highlighted with a cruise ship of Princess Diamond getting stuck in Yokohama port with some suspected COVID patients. Any cruise information gets, the media loves it. So it got hyped and exaggerated to such a large extent. And I'm not sure it was handled in the way that people should have been left on the cruise liner. But that apart, everybody got impacted in terms of getting nervous of traveling. So where did it leave India? We were in the midst of our inbound business. 11 million Indians, foreigners come into India from November until March. We were in the midst of all of that. People started getting nervous, started cancelling. We were going to start our summer, which is for our outbound passengers. Outbound passengers contribute to about 28 million passengers. The midst of summer, the entire summer got wiped out, and people to almost 60 to 70% of the year's revenues or footfall, so to say. The MICE business, first 6 months, contribute to 70% of the MICE business. So it actually got us when the first 6 months is our bread, butter, and jam. So the travel and tourism, in that sense, got impacted big time. And I think why did that also happen? Because all the partners and stakeholders in this business had to immediately close down. Airlines, hotels, railways, restaurants, ground handling companies. So all of this has not only meant revenues went down, business went down, and tourism contributes to almost 9.2% of India's GDP. that got impacted. So the economy got impacted to that extent. 5 crore jobs are at stake of getting impacted. So I think at all levels, COVID has been a nightmare. And I think it's we just have to find a way. It's going to take a good 12 to 18 months for people to really get back to, at the least 12 to 18 months to get back to some form of normalcy. But right now, it is some element of doom and gloom, but there is also a silver lining to every dark cloud.
Okay, Ms. Gupta, because your connection is quite weak, but still, before we close down, we want to know from you, what are the suggestions you would like to give to the government and what is the advice you want to give to the public at large? Ms. Gupta, please.
I think today the Indians constitute 0.001% of the cruisers of the world. There are 29 million cruisers in the world, 200,000, 220,000 to be precise, are cruisers from India. So from that perspective, I think there's a huge opportunity. India has the third longest coastline in the world. It has never been tapped. It's not been tapped not because there's no interest from the consumer. Customers want to go cruising. It's not that they don't have, ships don't want to come to India. But I think the third big element which is there is the government. The government has now begun to understand, in fact, this opportunity. And over the last 3 years, the government is spending a substantial amount of money to develop 5 ports in India. I think this is an opportunity for India to showcase itself. I think cruise ships are mobile assets. They will go where the business is. So if they see a new market opening up, they will definitely come to the port. So I think we need to have a very clear, ports need to get developed. We need to open up new small places, Sindhudur, Ganpatipule, Porbandar, different parts of our country, Vishakhapatnam. There are so many parts of our country which can be showcased to the world and to the domestic customer. So, and I think cruising, has an opportunity also because Indians or most countrymen are not going to move out of to foreign lands very soon. They will go within their own base. They'll travel domestically. So instead of people having to go abroad to get a cruise experience, if you can bring ships into the country, that will be great. Of course, you can have your own ships like Jalesh or Angria, but these are very expensive assets. So I think what we need to do for the first few years, the first few decades, the government should be able to get the big cruise liners to bring their ships here. So we just don't have a capital. It's a capital intensive business. So we don't have to have this capital intensive costs. So I think if you come up with a clear cruising policy where there are no unpredictable, no surprises. If people know that, people will bring their ships here. And these things are planned well in advance. So therefore, we need to do something right now. And I'm happy to say the shipping ministry is actively working on a paper on presenting to the PM on the cruising opportunity and the vision for cruising 20 years from now. So I think we are on the right track, and I think we can make an opportunity. We can make the most of this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gupta. Although the connection was not that clear, but still, what you have mentioned that we require a separate cruise policy for India, and according to you, the shipping ministry is doing hard work on that, and very soon the new. But only problem right now, because we all are facing, is the COVID-19. Whether that will also affect this thing or not, that we can't say. But I'm sure that once this COVID-19 effect will be less, definitely the cruise industry will boom in India. Now, one question.
I'd like to add here that the cruise liners behind the scene are doing whatever it takes to now work in the new world. It will be a different form. They'll try to make the cruise a safety haven of a virus-free zone and make sure that people are sterilizing before they come on board. And they're all working towards a new world or a new COVID-free zone to going forward.
Okay, that is a very good news that the crews are working for that, and we hope that they should, so that at least the Indian tourists can go on the cruise, so that there will be no fear about the COVID. Now, my next question, which any one of the panelists can answer, is which countries will benefit the most from international tourism in the future?
My guess is China.
Okay.
Can I add to that? I'd like to add to that. I think India can benefit. I think with the domestic, we've got such a large domestic market, but I think Southeast Asia countries like Singapore Singapore will benefit, Dubai will benefit, I think Middle East countries, because these were not affected so much by COVID. And secondly, they're very close, they're located close to the country. People are not going to go very far off. And these are visa easy countries. So I think these will benefit.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ajay.
I'd like to just add something over here. Yes, India can benefit, but for India to benefit, the industry needs to survive. Now, there are something like 3,500 to 3,800 IATA approved agents in the country. There are over 1 lakh non-IATA agents who also sell all travel services. There is going to be a bloodbath in this industry very shortly if things do not open up. You've had countries like the United States, like Japan, like UK, who have given direct cash benefits to employers so that they can retain their employees. We have not had anything so far. What is being offered is loans to MSMEs. The problem with a loan, frankly, is that it has to be repaid. If you do not know where business is going to be coming from, you are hesitant to take a loan. So the industry has to be supported, because otherwise we are looking at a loss of something like 5 crore jobs within India. And if the industry is decimated, if the workforce is decimated, then what are you going to benefit from? So it is vital that the government understands the plight of this industry. Instead of merely, mouthing pious platitudes about the importance of tourism, let us have the government factually examine this, see what it is contributing, see what are the number of jobs that are at stake, and what is it that needs to be done to help this industry survive. We've been talking about getting ATF, aviation turbine fuel, under GST for years now. I mean, these are practical steps that the government needs to take in order to ensure that our industry, remains alive, in order to be competitive. You cannot have one without the other. So this is what I would like, to put forward to the government. Please look at this industry not as an industry of the elite. The tourism value chain goes all the way down from your 5-star and 7-star hotels to that souvenir seller on the street. That's all part of the tourism chain. And all of them are affected, and all of them are going to be impacted very badly. And a lot of them are going to lose their jobs if the government does not step in with some direct benefits.
Can I add to this? Mr. Lal, can I?
Mr. Goel, you need to unmute your mic.
Yeah. Can I add a little bit to this, or are we?
Yes, please.
Okay. I said my quick reaction was China, because if you see what they've been doing, consistently over the last 3 months in terms of rebuilding for a resurgent tourism, I think they are making all the right moves. I would love India to be able to take advantage of this situation and actually reinvent its tourism industry. But it means several amount of basic steps that the government, the trade, and the traveling public will have to contribute to. One is, like our Prime Minister keeps saying, Atmanirbharta. I think the philosophy behind it, the principle of being self-sufficient is something that needs to be practiced, needs to be understood and practiced. Every time, I think as Ajay had earlier mentioned, resources are limited, and considering the limited resources, how much can be spread around to whom, and the same money that is going to go around, it's there's going to be priorities, and there's going to be the whole issue of how government prioritizes it. But let's take it on a individual front. If you ask me honestly, does COVID-19 situation bring a opportunity for the aviation industry? I think it brings the best opportunity during my lifetime for anyone to be able to start an airline. If somebody has got $2 billion, okay, and wants to be able to get into a new industry and relate it to something that's going to work, I think the time is to invest in the travel and tourism industry, especially in the airlines, because today is the time when you can get the best of the employees that you're looking for, the most skilled and able people in the market, be it the pilots, be it the engineers, be it the staff, experienced, knowledgeable, available there because they've been laid off. Two, you can get the aircrafts at negotiated dirt cheap prices. Fuel is at the all-time low. Now, challenge for you is to be able to identify those markets which are going to be resilient quick enough, where the safety measures are going to be such that people are going to feel safe and secure to travel. And
in depth about the international impact of on international tourism of COVID-19. So today you have seen that our eminent guests have given their views. Even they said that this is the right opportunity to start a new airlines. Even one of the guests has said that India is going to be the best destination, tourist destination in the world. So India can definitely become the global leader as far as the tourism is concerned if we will act positively, as well as for the public if we will move safely and securely, and we should follow the norms issued by the government or the airlines, so that there should be no infection chances which can be. Today, the program which has been brought to you, especially it is live telecasted on V4 News, News Karnataka, Global TV, Malnadu TV, as well as on Facebook and YouTube. I'm sure that this program, which we are bringing almost every day at 11 a.m., will be time. We are our best thing is that we want to educate, plus we want to enlighten the public what is happening by bringing all the experts of their fields. Thank you very much for watching our program, and thanks a lot for attending the program, Mr. Ajay Prakash and Prof.